the first trailer for Dead Man's Chest debuted as a preview to the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, another franchise that was just beginning. And this one debuted as the movie trailer in front of the movie. Did you see Chronicles of Narnia in theater? Did you see this trailer pop up beforehand?
I did, yes. I remember I remember seeing Chronicles of Narnia in theaters. I saw it. I want to say I think I saw it 3 times in theaters. I was a part of there's a university out here called Biola University, and I was a part of some of they offered these almost kind of like AP classes a bit for like high school, and there was one that was based around the C.S. Lewis's The Inklings, and it was kind of like an English lit type of class, and because we were like all kind of focused on like C.S. Lewis and stuff, we actually got to do a pre-screening of the movie at downtown Disney, and it was so much fun. And I remember they did play the Dead Man's Chest trailer in front, and I remember being very interested in it because I remember thinking like, oh, this is cool because I hadn't seen the first movie yet. And I remember thinking like, oh, there's the Kraken, there's all this stuff, and I was like, oh man, I think I'm gonna have to check that out.
That's awesome. See, one leads to the next, and
Hmm.
uh, in that case, it was really good marketing, right?
Definitely, yeah. Especially with how, and I think that the film being Dead Man's Chest being so successful, I think honestly a lot of that has to do partially with the trailer being on Chronicles of Narnia. Because a lot of people may not remember now, but Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was a massively successful film. I mean, I want to say I think it earned over 700 million, which was, now people will say like, oh, 700 million, that's it. And it's like, well, for back then, in like 2005, that was, or 2006, that was a lot of money at the theater. And so I think a lot of people saw the trailer and it made them want to go see the movie.
This was also in a time when you couldn't just watch it on YouTube whenever you wanted, you know, like
Hmm. Very
a lot
true.
of like they kind of relied a lot more upon this kind of thing of like old school like Granada mentality back in the day, how you'd go to the movie theater and you'd want to see the trailers before the movie to see what's coming out in the near future, right? To see what's coming out next. It was a big deal. Like for me, I always think back to, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Dane Cook, the comedian. My favorite stand up comedy special of all time was the one that he did at Madison Square Garden, uh, where he was kind of talking back in '07, I think it was, around the same time period, where he was talking about, had this whole bit about movie theaters and like that, like the moment you're watching the trailers in the movie theater, that's the moment that everyone's a critic, and after they see it, they're like, "Hey, that was pretty good," or "Oh, that sucks." That's that's lame. Like so. It's super cool. And back then, that was much more of a prevalent. Now, not so much. I mean, it is cool to see it up on the big screen. I will say that, but now, like most people will watch it on YouTube or whatever, or it's just not a thing like it used to be. You know.
No, that's very true, because like I remember, back then, in that era, I knew friends and people who would actually go to see a movie again just so they could see a cool trailer, because like you said, you couldn't see it any other time. And so, if you wanted to see something again, well, you had to go to the theater again.
Yeah, and if YouTube, I mean, YouTube might have been around back then, but YouTube was a very different kind of YouTube back then. You're probably talking like 360p kind of quality, like very pixelated. So
No, it's very true. YouTube was a completely different animal, back when it was coming out in that time. And it's like, this dates me a lot, but I remember, when YouTube was just getting started and stuff. I remember the top video of all time worldwide had 30 million views. It's like, and that was considered such a huge deal. It's like, and now, it's like music videos get that all the time.
oh, that's nothing. Yeah, nowadays that's
Hmm.
in the grand scheme of things, that's really not a whole lot. There's videos that have like billions of views, isn't there?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah,
it's
I think there's a few videos that are over like 3 billion views now. Yeah.
That's just crazy. Like
Hmm.
I mean, it's such a part of our culture now. That everybody uses it,
Hmm.
for so many different things, and
Hmm.
so
It's
it's kind of interesting.
absolutely, yeah.
But talking about the the screening of the movie and the preview and the trailer, the first actual screening of this movie, Dead Man's Chest, took place at Disney World with Hans Zimmer composing a new variation of the iconic theme "When You Wish Upon a Star." Also unveiled was the first ever computer generated Walt Disney Pictures production logo, courtesy of Weta Digital, Cyrus Parrish, and Cameron Smith.
Interesting. Oh, so that's interesting. So what was that, the whole one of like the panning shot with like the train and like the kingdom going into like the castle? I
That's a good
wonder.
question. It might be.
I wonder if it was that one. Huh?
It
Because
might
I
be.
remember that the whole logo came about in the mid 2000s. So I wonder if it was. I wonder if it came about from this.
It's very possible. You're probably right.
Mhm.
I remember watching the one like old school like Disney animated movies and stuff. The I used to like the one that would be like where it would go around the castle and it like show all the windows and stuff. And I always thought that was
Mhm.
like one of the coolest things ever. I don't know why, but yeah. So that's super cool that it was also a part of. They were also using like a CGI new production kind of logo and kind of expanding and growing, taking the next step, as a company. And it was partially because of this franchise. So,
That's true. Hmm.
and while the movie itself received like a mixed critical reception, the film broke the US opening weekend box office record at the time with $136 million dollars and would eventually become the fastest film to ever reach $1 billion and become the highest grossing film of 2006. Nothing to slouch at right there. No other Disney film would even come close until Toy Story 3 in 2010. Isn't that just crazy?
That's just wild. Yeah, because thinking back, like the $1 billion club back then was very sparse. There was not a lot of films that were in the $1 billion club, and so for this one to hit $1 billion was like now nowadays it's like it feels like every other month we hear of a film hitting $1 billion. Back then, it was a huge deal when a film hit that. Like it was a very very big deal.
Nowadays, I feel like if a film doesn't reach a billion, in some cases, it's kind of considered a failure.
Hmm. Yeah, well, definitely, yeah. Like, I mean, you look at the Batman. That a lot of people were saying like, oh, it underperformed because it didn't hit $1 billion. Same with Doctor Strange too. And stuff. It's like both films are very successful in their own right, but it's like, yeah, they didn't hit that milestone, and so people were disappointed. And it's like, once upon a time, that milestone was almost unreachable, and I think that this film, it just kind of shows the testament of how beloved the first one was. That everybody rushed out to see it. And that's why it earned as much as it did. Kind of you mentioned with this too. You mentioned the Rotten Tomato, the critic score. And honestly, like when I went back and revisited the critic score for this movie, I was actually a bit surprised. Honestly, I was surprised that it got like only 53% positive. Because, well, I would say it's not as good of a movie as the first one is, because the first one was amazing. I really kind of feel like 53% is a little bit too harsh, I would say. And also, I was a bit surprised as well with the audience score at 72%, because well, that's not a bad audience score by any means. I feel like over the years the film's reputation has kind of grown a little bit more, because I hear normally now nothing but positive about it. So I was kind of surprised to see that a bit lower audience score from that. So I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, how do you become the fastest film ever at that point to reach $1 billion with a B, billion, and be the highest grossing movie of that year, 2006, and only have a 72% audience score? That's really weird when you think about it.
Hmm. Yeah, it just seems really strange to me. Yeah, because obviously the word of mouth was good. People liked the film, obviously, because it wouldn't have earned that much money otherwise. So yeah, that's definitely kind of strange. It definitely has kind of it is a bit of a more of a downer of a film, a little bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And the film was also the best-selling DVD of 2006 for the number of DVDs sold, while coming in second place in terms of the actual total DVD revenue. To guess which movie? Chronicles of Narnia: Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Any shocker there?
Oh, that's it. That's interesting, man. And thinking back, it's like, man, what an amazing year Disney was having. Having two back to back franchise blockbusters. Ruling the box office, ruling the physical media landscape as well. I mean, that must have been a great feeling for the people who greenlit those movies.
Oh yeah, just rolling in the dough. You know, it's kind of like Jerry Maguire. Show me the money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's that's fascinating, man. And I'm not surprised Chronicles of Narnia was the best selling DVD of 2006, just because it was a little bit more family friendly, and from a beloved novel, of course, but that's very interesting. I know that I purchased the 4 disc extended edition of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, and then that was a movie that was also near and dear to my heart as a kid as well. And just thinking back to
Hmm.
2006, like what a huge year that was for Disney, obviously for these two franchises and these two movies. Uh, it's also really interesting to think about. Like we were kind of little pulling back the curtain here beforehand. We were kind of talking a little bit about Superman, and we had mentioned Brandon Routh and his Superman movie is the Superman Returns, that is, came out in 2006, and it was nowhere near these movies in terms of the amount of money, in terms of box office, in terms of you know physical media and like DVD sales and whatnot. So it's really really interesting to think that there was a huge superhero movie that came out that year, but it wasn't quite yet in that big boom phase. Like it was that was also a movie that was a very mixed received movie in terms of audience and critics as well. But just a fun fact, throwback to 2006, I guess.
No, that's very interesting because it is very weird to think back to a time when the superhero genre was not anywhere near as strong as it is now. I mean, even thinking back, like, I think it was 2005, was when Batman Begins released, and that movie grossed 350 million worldwide. That was its total. It's like,
That's it.
yeah, that's it. It's like that was its total gross, and then like you said with the Superman Returns, that the superhero genre was not the surefire bet that it is today. Instead, it was more, these more genre specific films like Narnia and Pirates, and I don't know. There is a bit of nostalgia for that, because I love superhero films. I enjoy watching Marvel and DC and stuff, but there is a part of me that does still kind of miss that mid 2000s era, when you had these films that were not necessarily locked into one franchise or one genre that still could dominate the box office.
And as speaking as somebody who literally wrote a book about superhero movies, I feel the same way.